Howdy, folks. Today we're looking at Sergio Aragonés Destroys DC from 1996 in DC Comics. The mid-90s was a strange time in the history of comic books, a period of economic uncertainty marked by surprising collaborations between industry leaders Marvel and DC, something that only ever seems to happen in times of existential peril for the business. But enough about current events. We're talking about 96. Marvel vs. DC was all the rage, buttressed by the popularity of the beloved Amalgam event. In all the hubbub, the two companies also managed to come together for another project of a slightly less cosmic profile, a crossover between the two companies and a third party, a veteran cartoonist with decades of experience working for both DC and Marvel. Yes, Sergio Aragonés himself, famous for decades of work for Mad Magazine, Groo the Wanderer, and yes, those interstitial cartoons on TV's bloopers and practical jokes. In the spring of 1996, DC and Marvel cooperated to put out a pair of one-shots from Aragonés, allowing the cartoonist free rein to goof on their respective stables of characters. Of course, Sergio is an old hand at DC, his work having been a staple of the company's output for a solid decade, beginning in the late 60s, before leaving the company due to a new contract. He wound up back under the DC umbrella years after the fact when Mad was purchased by Warner Brothers. Sadly, by 96, his old pals Kane and Abel were under the auspices of Vertigo, but we do get to see Aragonés drawing the company's entire mainstream line, all the members of the enormously popular JLA, plus the Legion of Superheroes and Hawkman, who really didn't have a lot else going on. It was the 90s. Superman was wearing his hair long, Batman was an unpleasant ass, and Wonder Woman was being drawn by John Byrne. What a time to be alive! Of course, one of the draws for this book was a stable of stunt inkers, working with Aragonés, such as the aforementioned Byrne on the Wonder Woman section, along with DC stalwarts like Scott Hanna, Joe Rubinstein, and even Jerry Ordway on a handful of pages. We just had Ordway inking Rob Liefeld a few days ago, so here's a seemingly even more unlikely pairing. The best gags, as you might expect, are the background jokes peppered throughout. Superman flies away from the Daily Planet as a neighbor Riley observes to his wife, "Kent's flying around again, Agnes," and a woman in curlers looks out her window to see Wonder Woman's arrival and notes, "I used to look like that." Batman spends a lot of time beating up derelicts for information, and the Joker steals the show by calling Batman by his first name. Ultimately, the villain is revealed as none other than Johnny DC himself, gone feral in the Chromium era. Yeah, they lifted that beat from Ambush Bug, but I'll let Sergio have it. Ultimately, Batman saves the day by tricking Johnny DC into saying his name backwards, and the contents of this issue are accidentally printed in a new issue of The Sandman, which is actually funnier in 2025 than it was in 1996.